Turn on that radio and back here. The cops ain't likely to catch up with us, not tonight. So we can all be quiet and peaceable and listen to the music.
This episode of Auto Dealer Live is brought to you by TrueCar.
Cribs, man, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Cheers.
Cheers. You doing good?
I'm doing great, man. Doing fabulous.
We got a great show today. It's still episodes. We're still naming them like episode titles, man. I thought we were going to go back to, some like strategic titles. I think we're going to do that starting next week or two.
Let's do it. Next week.
How you doing today, brother? You doing good?
I'm doing great.
How's business?
It's good.
Yeah.
A lot of movement, a lot of things happening. You know, we're basically right at the end of the first quarter. So what does it look like for you? I'm sure dealers are kind of honed in on that. But what's going on with you?
Well, we're crushing it. You know, I am so busy, brother. It's like I think that the best way to describe what's going on, and we're going to be talking about vendor relationship today, and I know we're going to be talking to guys and gals who literally, who deal with this on a regular basis. But when I look at this, I see a quarter that is going to close extremely strong in the automotive business. But then again, I think and I think I'm going to bring this up today. I think it comes down to the driver. It comes down to the person who is really bringing it, because if you just look at the economy, or you look at the atmosphere, or you look at how business is trending, then I think that you're probably going to run into, you're going to run into the average, the mediocre. But I look at it as, what are the players doing? Because, guys, if you're watching the show, let's just face it, there's 20,000 dealers in the U.S. I mean, we got a small sampling. I mean, really, honestly, a small sampling of the dealers in the U.S. represented watching this show today. So what if we just say that we are the elite? If you are the elite today, what if we call them out? Huh? If you feel like you are the elite, if you're an elite vendor today in the automotive industry, if you're an elite salesperson, an elite finance manager, GM, dealer principal, if you are an elite detail operator, parts manager, whatever it is, if you work around centered in the automotive business and you are elite, give me some likes. How about that? Huh?
Come on.
Let's get some thumbs up. And I think that's what we're dealing with, man. Yeah. So I really don't think, honestly, I think that it comes down to what you put in, and yeah. I think that's what I'm banking on.
Yeah, and I think we have a kind of almost an obligation to open up today talking about what the opportunity is. Not only for vendors but for dealers as well. But this is a unique business. You talk about it, often about the fact that hey, there are not too many businesses that you can call up someone who's running an entire organization, and land them on the phone to have an opportunity to present something and make a decision. That's challenging in the corporate world, but yet dealers are right there. They're on scene, they're on the spot. They have that mission day after day of what to do next to make sure that they're selling the most cars. And it's a great opportunity, not only for the dealers to see the latest and greatest, but also for vendors to, it's like a playground.
Well, we are a vendor, and so when I look at this, something I'm curious, and I want to ask the panel today. And of course, we have some actual dealers, current dealers on the panel as well today as vendors. But I want to ask this question. I want to ask you, our audience, I want to see what you feel. And I want you to weigh in. And if you have a question and you have a comment on this, you not only can weigh in on Facebook, and we have our social media specialist, our strategist, Taria Childs. We have a phone number set up as well, 813-574-1820. You can call in and ask that question to us or our panel. But here's what I'm curious. I want to bring this up because I don't want to just talk about, I'm not just here to vendor bash. I'm not just here to get, I know that we have a big slant today on getting your statistics right as if you're a vendor talking to a dealer. And I think that there is such a need for that. Believe me, we're going to talk a great deal. But I want to bring this up as well, man. I talked to a dealer this morning great guy. We spent collectively, I spent 28 minutes on the TO. 28 minutes on the turn, okay? And my rep for training who by the way has spent 13 years in the retail automotive industry very successfully, I might add, spent another 35 minutes on the phone with him prior to that. So we spent over an hour with the decision maker. And this person had multiple times expressed their reason for needing our product. But I want to talk about the fact that if dealers too, on the flip side, if they really know what to look at when it comes to vendors, if they know what it is that's causing the deficit, whether it's marketing, whether it's training, if it's a back end product, if it's a fixed ops tool, if it's something that's going to help manage their dealership, do they really understand what it is, right, that they're looking at? And I think that that's very important too when we're looking at this whole vendor-dealer relationship. It's a two-way street, because here's the deal. There are real problems. This is what you got to understand, guys. And this is really where we want to go with it. There's real problems and there's real solutions. And then there's problems that aren't necessarily the problem that you might think's the problem. And there's also solutions that aren't real. Right?
Yeah. And you have to, I think, as a dealer, you have to look at what you're investing in, and you have to kind of go at it with the understanding that you're not just writing the check and it's going to be on autopilot. In most cases, almost anything you purchase as a dealer, it's going to take the same type of commitment that the vendor is putting out to make this work. It's going to take it in implementing it at the dealership level.
Yeah, that's good. What do you guys think? Do you think that's good? Jay Lasco, Jess Katz, Shelly Clark, Sean Hayes. What's up, Sean? El Patron. We've got Chris Walsh, Sandy Marie, Zanino, Daryl Bailey, Amy Edmonds, Huge. What's up, Amy? Amy, you're a vendor. I'd love to hear what you have to say on this. I'd love you to call in. Jason, you guys are vendors. You guys are calling dealers on a regular basis, and we're going to find out what the right and wrong way to do that is. Travis Lumsden. Guys, thank you so much. Make sure you share this. Look, if you want to help us out here, this is how you can help us out. Click share, because if there's an automotive professional, both on the dealer side or vendor side, or maybe they're in between, maybe they have left one to go to the other, or vice versa, you can help us by sharing it. Ivan Velasquez, what's up? I hope Mexico is wonderful down there, my friend. I saw you on your Facebook Live the other day. Great job. Listen, share it. Let us know what's going on, and tell your friends about this show. This is a great topic. I think we're going to get into some really good dialogue here. Don't miss us next month at Digital Dealer. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have some time. We're going to freestyle it next month.
Next year.
Freestyle it.
There we go.
I was laughing at freestyle. You were laughing at next year. Freestyling it. I don't know what that means. Freestyling it. We're going to
do some rapping or something up on stage. I don't know what you're going to do.
No, we're going to freestyle it. We don't have a booth. We didn't opt for a booth, and we're going to be walking around interviewing, kind of man on the street style, Dave.
Yeah.
And I've got a workshop on how to stop wasting your advertising dollars. That's going to be on Tuesday morning, the opening morning at 9 a.m. Then I'm moderating the opening keynote at 3:30 p.m. It's the opening keynote right in the keynote hall in Orlando. And I've got 10 dealer principals and general managers of some of the biggest, largest, most aggressive, and on the cusp of just freaking crushing it stores coming and going to be on that panel. It's going to be a riser style town hall, and it's going to be open to you. Your questions are what we want to hear, so submit them now, ask them in the audience, and then it's going to be a great time. And I'm looking forward to Digital Dealer, man. It's going to be kind of refreshing this year.
I'm looking forward to that, especially.
Yeah? Are you?
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. You put 10 dealers on a stage and open it up to the audience. It's not any better than that.
Hey,
really.
What if we Facebook? We don't have, listen, this is the beautiful thing about the internet today, right? I mean, we can just Facebook Auto Dealer Live anytime we want with a phone. And if you have an iPhone 10, I don't know. I mean, the iPhone 10, the camera is like beast. I mean, it's like, it's as good as Lewis's cameras. Right, Lou?
That is 100% correct.
It is. So maybe we can just do a live on the scene somewhere, grab a few people, just throw a curveball right out on Facebook Live and do a little impromptu Auto Dealer Live. Wouldn't that be cool?
I think it would be super cool. And I love the roaming interviews on the dealer floor and the expo hall and all that. To me, that's one of the
I'm gonna
funnest
have
parts.
the camera anyway.
You're gonna have the camera in.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway,
So hey,
You can actually Facebook Live kind of remotely too,
I can
can't
do
you?
whatever I want.
You can't do whatever you want.
Come on, Dave.
Can
I'll
you
make it happen.
can you pee up a wall?
That I can't do.
You can't do whatever you want. Hey, how about this? you guys tell us if you know someone that's going to be at Digital Dealer, or maybe you yourself will be there, and you think we should interview somebody, and we'll do a couple of days, a 2.5 day Facebook Live, just kind of throw them up there. If you want to see somebody interviewed at Digital Dealer by Dave and Dave, then you throw their name up there in the comment section, and we just might try to find them and tell them it's because of you that we're interviewing them. What do you think about that?
I think it's huge. I mean, we're talking
Lou,
today.
While you're talking, go ahead. Lou, do you got some stuff to give away? Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, we're talking today to vendors. The show's about vendors and kind of the do's and don'ts. We're going to go over here in a moment, but talk about an opportunity. If I'm a vendor and I'm watching right now and I have an opportunity to be live on the floor at Digital Dealer and be interviewed on Auto Dealer Live, that's going to go out to thousands of dealers and decision makers, that is a huge opportunity. So if you want to be interviewed, or you know someone, go ahead and tag them, and we'll vet it and get it done live on the scene at Digital Dealer.
All right. Jay Lasco said, I had a big vendor stop by this morning. He discussed the latest enhancements that they had coming. We talked strategy, and he's seeing in the market what he's seeing in the market, and we even struck a deal on dirt cheap product that should get us some great exposure. He called that meet, and I made a point to make time to fit him in. The relationship exists, but you have to be equal part in it. I'll tell you this, man. I appreciate you saying that, Jay. I know Jay's a busy dealer. Him and Matt do a great job. No strangers to the show. Another person who's not a stranger to the show, but I'm finding out more and more that he's responsible for a lot of mentorship in the car business, and that's John Marazzi. I mean, John Marazzi is just a great guy. And one of the things that John has said all along is that he never not meets with a vendor. If you call him, listen, if you're listening to vendors and you want to know somebody that, listen, I'm not saying someone you can sell. I'm saying someone that you have an opportunity to sell. John Marazzi said that he has not arrived to the point where he will not meet with you. I think that's pretty, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And open-minded.
Yeah,
there's a reason.
But bring your game. Bring your game when you talk to a guy who is who's a mover in the auto world for sure. Not only in mentorship, but I mean someone who has a track record, a history of just turning stores not only around but making them huge winners. So bring your A game.
That's right. Hey, we're going to give some stuff away today. We're going to go to break. We're going to bring our panel on right now. I don't know how we're going to do this, but if you want these shirts, here's one right here. Listen, it's still got the tag on this bad boy. Listen, this is not
just...
got
a Nike emblem on it?
Yeah, dude, this is a Nike shirt. Look at the tag on this thing. Is there like a price tag on this thing? I don't know. It's the same tag that's like at Sports Authority.
600 and...
I'm pretty sure that this shirt at Sports Authority is like $70, right?
Yeah,
Nike?
Dealer. They hooked us up.
They didn't play around. I mean, this is a men's or a medium woman. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I said men's because it said men's. I always feel weird about saying that because I feel like Taria's gonna throw something at me because she's a woman. But and we're in 2018, right? I mean, this is a shirt, and if you want it, listen, Dealer Teamwork, Nike, Dry Fit. It's a medium men's, and whatever size that translates in. We're gonna give that away, and with some other stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
You want this? I don't know. Just put some comments up there, and we're going to give them away. We're going to give them away on air today. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go to break. We'll be right back with our guest.
Hey everybody, this is Mikey. Today I want to share an exciting new mail. Look, in today's digital world, you can no longer rely on regular emails. Customers will either forget about them, lose them, or just completely ignore them altogether. So how can we solve this problem? Well, it's absolutely imperative that you add video to your emails if you ever hope to grab the attention of the modern customer. That's where FlickFusion can help. This top-notch video marketing team has just one goal, which is to provide you with fresh customers who are excited about coming into your dealership. They have an innovative service that can increase both your appointment percentages and show rates for your dealership. So what they do is combine traditional email with video marketing in order to captivate prospects and then direct them to your sales team. VidMail, you can even go mobile, from any device to any device, with both texting and live streaming capabilities. So why don't you check out FlickFusion's VidMail today at flickfusion.com and see how it can transform your digital advertising.
Hey guys, David Villa here, CEO of IPD in Tampa, Florida. I'm going to be with my man Eddie Perez on April 12th in the city of Orlando, Florida. What are we doing? We're influencing Orlando. How can you have an event title like Influence Orlando and not be excited? Look, I'm not talking about a suburb or a little sliver of the city. I'm talking about influencing the entire city of Orlando. April 12th at the Orlando Museum of Art. Listen, you got to be there. I'm going to see you then. We're all the millennials. We're all the influencers. I'll see you there, April 12th.
Hey, welcome back to Auto Dealer Live. Today's episode 315. I am your host, Dave Cribbs, and this is
David Villa.
David Villa. Hey, we've got a great show. We're talking today a little bit about vendors, their interaction with dealerships. We've talked in the opener about the opportunity. We're going to get into some great questions here with our panel. So I want to welcome everyone. We've got Glenn Pash, CEO at Partner and PCG Companies.
CEO and Partner.
I know it says at Partner. I'm like,
yes.
Okay, CEO and Partner at PCG Companies. That makes more sense. We've got Jess Katz, General Sales Manager at Red Wing Chevrolet. We've got Bill Playford, Vice President and Partner at Dealer Knows.
Who knows?
Dealer Knows.
Who knows?
Dealer Knows.
All right.
And we got Jason Grace, Sales and Marketing Professional at Grace and Company. Everyone,
JG.
welcome to the show, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Well, hey, no problem. Hey, Glenn, it's your fault, man. You started this whole thing on Facebook, brother. You started this whole dialogue, so I'm going to let you start this off today. And I say that respectfully and agreeing with you in 90% of what you said. You started the dialogue talking about vendors and their interaction for, I guess the best way to sum it up, interaction with dealers. And I'm going to let you just, rather than ask you a question, I'm going to let you kind of just pontificate a little bit, Glenn, kind of get this started off. Why don't you take your article and your blog, your rant there, and kind of bring that into today's show so we can get this started based on what I was inspired by, and that is your post.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a rant, and then I actually took the post down on Facebook because people were taking it wrong, and so I expanded my thoughts in then a blog post on LinkedIn. For many of us who are in the vendor community, there's just like auto dealers, you have reputations of the way dealers look at vendors, just as some consumers look at auto dealers. We have the good, the bad, the ugly all mixed in. My point is that I've been on consulting calls for clients and sitting in on vendor calls. And I think there's times where it's a responsibility of both parts. And you touched on this earlier in your opening, David, is the vendors have to really know their audience, know the dealer they're talking to, the knowledge level that they're there so that they can explain what they're doing. Every dealer in my mind should understand exactly what you're doing with the money that they're giving you. And here are the results in common sense language that they can understand. It's very easy to go down the road of all of these acronyms and words and clicks and this and that, and the dealer hangs up the phone because I've sat with them all, and they go, I don't really understand what they just said, but I hope it's working. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, the dealers also have to have a responsibility to go out and get some education. The education is out there. I say this to dealers before the internet, you held all the knowledge, customers felt uncomfortable. It's the same thing now. You think your agency has all this knowledge on digital marketing, so you feel uncomfortable. But the key is there is education out there to educate yourself, to learn at least what they're doing. Someone said it earlier in the opening. It's your responsibility to know what this vendor's talking about, where it fits, does it fit? And it's just, I think both sides have to do it. So my frustration was a little bit of sitting on vendor calls and just, I have to be the person for my client to raise the hand and to say, well, what does that mean? What are you calling a conversion? And no, that's not a conversion. And what about this? And no, and I don't want to be that person to just point fingers, but at the same moment in time, I have to protect my client to say, you're basically blowing smoke when you should really be talking about, your results in very clear and simple form.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it's great that a dealer, Glenn, would have the luxury of having you kind of there to moderate the conversation as well. I think that's huge, but and certainly encourage dealers to dig a little deeper when it comes to those types of things. Let's go to Jason Grace, and Jason, you know, we talked about it earlier in the opener. Glenn just mentioned it as well. We talked about accountability of the dealer also when it comes to vendor programs that they may invest in and kind of doing their part. As a vendor, when you do have a dealer that's invested in a product, it's kind of tricky from the vendor perspective sometimes, because the dealer is your client. And if you see them drop the ball, you've got to kind of address that. So maybe give some pointers to vendors about how to go about talking with a dealer about maybe some areas that they might be dropping the ball in when it comes to using a vendor product.
Sure. So anytime that I approach a dealer with a possible package for marketing or anything else, I have to let them know step by step what I expect as far as their understanding and what they're bringing to the table, finances. Anytime that you provide, like I do direct mail staffed events, and anytime that we provide all the services 100%, financing, the marketing and everything else, it becomes a real issue because the dealer doesn't have skin in the game. Everybody has to have skin in the game. And that goes with digital, that goes with anything that you're doing. When you're bought in 100%, that goes across your entire team, and everybody feels that. When you expect participation from everybody, you have to be involved. You have to have your hands involved, or at least have a framework. Like when I go to a dealer, I explain exactly how everything works step by step, from the delivery process to how the sale is pitched to the consumers. They have to know. So, ideally, we want to build integrity and trust through transparency by showing them step by step what we're going to do and then doing it to that point. It's sad that I get dealers that tell me, oh, yeah, I'm getting 5% return on saturation mail. And I stop, wait a minute, I've never heard of that before. 5% on saturation. Well, the problem is they're being sold. When you break it all down and you see what the numbers are, it doesn't work that way. So you have to give realistic data to your dealers so that they can look at it and they can see, okay, we've seen this many people, we sold this many cars. It's got to be realistic.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. And I'm going to turn it. You know how I normally do. I'm going to turn it on its head a little bit, because I am, and I want to ask you guys, and Jess, I'll go to you. You're at the dealership level. You're a GSM. I would imagine you probably get, like most GMs, GSMs, you probably get 25 calls a week, from somebody trying, I would imagine probably 3 times that amount in emails of somebody saying, I'm trying to get your time. And here's the deal. I've never met an industry. I say this very, 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 clearly to people I hire. I've never, ever in my entire adult life seen an industry that spends money on marketing or training like automotive. And, they just, and everyone that gets into that industry, that gets into the vendor side, is introduced through somebody who knows that. And they say, hey, Dave, welcome to the auto industry, right? Hey, by the way, dealerships spend a lot of money and they do this, this, and this, and they need to sell cars and blah, blah, blah. So, at the same time, you have a lot of people, I think, that misrepresent themselves. Like Glenn, we've talked before, vendors that misrepresent themselves. But then you have dealerships that really don't know what their pain point is. They call up and, you have dealers that spend a lot of money on advertising or training or what have you, and then they cancel it 3 months later because they don't have any idea what they've done off of it. There's no ROI, there's no accountability. And my question is, like, how, they're making so much money, or it wouldn't even be something that could feasibly happen year after year after year after decade. So they're making a ton of money. And the reason I say that is there's really no knowledge, I think, sometimes of what is being lost, where this wasted distribution is, and where this lack of ROI is. And Jess, what do you think it is about the auto industry that somebody once long ago, like an old ancestor, GM said, hey, listen, we're going to spend a lot of money every month, and this is what we're going to do. And this is going to pass it on down the generations. And 100 years later, here we are, right? We're still doing it, but there's no ROI. Do you think that that contributes? And I'm just asking you, Jess, as somebody on the dealer side, do you think that dealers sometimes contribute to this disconnect because they don't know how to measure this ROI? Would you think that's fair?
I do. First of all, I just want to say thanks for having me. I've been a huge fan of Auto Dealer Live for a long time, so thanks for having me.
Well, we're a fan of yours too, by the way. So thank you.
I think that a lot of dealerships will spend a ton of money on a product that they want to work, but they don't actually look at the metrics and the measurements and look at and dig into like the missed opportunity. I know with like a lot of my vendors, like it's definitely a two-way partnership. I couldn't do what I do without them. Mm-hmm. And I have 100% buy-in. It's not just me in those meetings. It's, the other individuals that they're going to have to help carry out the discipline to get the job done. I know I would definitely prefer to have the vendors like have a scheduled appointment to meet with me, because it's, if there's something I can learn or grow at my team and get better, they have all of these different metrics from dealerships all over where I take that time very seriously, and then we try to like listen to learn to see how we can implement them at our store to make us better.
Okay. Yeah, and Bill, throw this to you real quick, man, kind of just like a tennis player, just lob it right over to you. I know you work with Joe, huge friend of Joe, good friend of ours, friend of the show, friend of us from Digital Dealer. We've known Joe for years. I know you work with Joe Webb, and I know Joe back in the day, probably 2 years ago, I'm sure he still feels this way, because Joe is the salmon of the industry. What I mean by that is salmon swim upstream, and your company swims upstream, Joe, or Bill, and I think that you're proud of that, and that's fine. But let me ask you this. Joe mentioned something on the show 2 years ago, and I remember this very, very clearly. He said he was an advocate for vendor. He said, hey, listen, I'm tired of vendors, and this is kind of me paraphrasing it, interrupting, dealers and interrupting my meetings and calling in when I have a meeting with them, and dealers blow me off for someone else. And he advocated an appointment-only type process, and you're familiar with that. So why don't you kind of bring I know this is an area that you guys are very passionate about, Bill. Do you buy into that and as passionately as Joe does, and maybe touch on that a little bit and kind of bring that into the conversation?
Oh, absolutely. And thanks again for letting me join you guys today. Mm-hmm. One of the big parts of that is time management. And, we're all very passionate about the industry, and we know some people are overextended in their jobs. Some people may be overextended in their golf, depending on the time of year at the dealership. But, really it gives the opportunity for both the vendor and, whomever is at the dealership doing the interview or the call to give the most time to it. And when you're always interrupting or you're just dropping in, you can't get the full attention that product deserves. And there's a lot of great stuff out there. And one of the things I'm looking forward to going to NAD here in a couple of weeks is really getting to know the new products and services that are out there. But it's because I have the time to do so. And it's hard for us, even on the vendor side, and I'm sure that the other people would agree as well. It's hard for us to even schedule a time sometimes just to take a random phone call. I want to give it every ounce of attention it deserves. And that way I can know that, one, if it's good for my store, it's a good fit. But two, I can get those baseline metrics, and I can maybe get the benchmarking that I never got in the very beginning. So that way I don't maybe feel like I've been duped or something like that.
Well, let me ask you this. I asked Joe this 2 years ago. I'm sorry, Dave. I want to follow up with it because I asked Joe, and I love Joe to death, and I think that he is extremely. You guys are obviously doing extremely well. My question to Joe was, and I ask you this because I think John Marazzi might have been on that show as well, and that's where John first announced, look, I meet with every vendor, and I'm going to, no matter what happens, I'm going to take impromptu calls because I want to know what's going on, and I'm always open for adjustments and flex, and to change. And so, how's that work for you? And then again, on the flip side, what about the dealerships that say, like John Marazzi, hey, I'm open to taking calls, and I have a set budget, I have a set schedule, but at the same time, I'm going to be open to making adjustments on the fly as well. I mean, Bill, follow up with that, maybe just add to that and address some of those concerns as well.
Right. I could kill a couple birds with one stone here. Is what's good for John is what's good for John.
There you go.
And we can't expect every dealership to want to do that. So we have to be cognizant of that. And some dealerships are going to have that time. They're going to have that allocation of time. Some are just flat out too busy. And it's up to the vendor to gauge that out.
That's good.
Personally, like I said, most of our dealerships, they're maxed out. Their digital managers they're taking vendor calls. The vendors they have right now, they're going over analytics. They're crashing deals. They're doing what they can to get stuff done. And I'll flip the question back to you. If you're a dealer and you're sitting in that chair, do you want somebody dropping in on the last day of the month?
Well, here's the answer to that is obviously on the last day of the month, probably not. Although on the last day of the month, I will say this. I talked to, it's actually my father, so I can call him out. He sold a company 2 years ago for in the over 20 million. And it was a digital automotive software company. I won't name the names because I don't want to throw out the name of the company. It's well known. I don't want to talk about who bought them and what have you. My dad was the CEO of that company. I called him about 3 years ago, about a year and a half before he sold that company, and it was 2 days left in the month. And my dad trained me, mind you. He's retired now, but he trained me, in the early 90s on how to sell. I mean, and let me tell you something. If there was a day after the last day of the month, between the last day and the first day, we would have been open that day back then. Right? It was like that kind of deal. And that's what my guys do. And we close deals every single month on the last day. I called him and I'm talking to him and he said, you guys are working? I said, yeah. He goes, well, we let our guys off on the last couple of days of the month. I'm like, what happened to my dad? And can you go get them? And the bottom line is, I went over and trained his people. They had about 350 rooftops. It was about almost 4 years ago. They sold the company. April will be 2 years with 1,250 rooftops because I convicted him about opening back up the last 3 days of the month because we closed more business on those 3 days than any other 3 days connected. So, I mean, at the same time, a dealer can say, hey, it's the last day of the month, you know what that is. But the reality is most decision makers are not out shoveling snow on the last day of the month. They're not out desking a deal. They're not out doing a walk around, and they're not test driving a vehicle, right? They're sitting there going, I got to figure out how I don't have another month like this month.
Well, let's cut to the chase. Let's cut to the chase. Dave, I totally agree. In fact, I'm glad we're going down this road, and I'm going to throw this to Glenn. But there's two things. They're the way that we might ask a dealer how you would like to be sold, or how what works best for you, and they're going to answer a certain way. Just like a consumer, when we ask them how they'd like to buy a car, well, I'd like to come in the dealership and it only take 15 minutes. Well, hashtag me too, right? So there's a way that dealers would like to be sold, but then there's also the way that dealers are sold.
Yeah, well, there's a definition of the word sold. I mean, sold or so, is it?
Exactly. So let's go to Glenn. Glenn, what do you say? I mean, I think that there's a space here that we have aggressive salespeople that do call, that do get through, that do get the decision maker on the spot, and wind up with a deal. And I think that's part of a definition of a salesperson. So I'll throw that at you, Glenn, and maybe you can expand upon that.
Yeah, so I think, listen, I've had aggressive salespeople work for us, and I've had other people that have a lower key approach, and they both are successful. Because for every dealer that loves the aggressive person who's going to call them 20 times, and I wish my guys called like that, there's other people who are like, can you have him please stop calling me 20 times? So again, it's finding the right balance and having a mix. I think the bigger question, or the bigger thing that we should be focusing on, is when we're approaching or when we're selling, how are we selling? Are we explaining the product in ways that they understand? Or again, are we doing a lot of jazz hands? And then from the flip side, from the dealer who's sitting with all of these guys, and I agree with Bill, God bless John, who's taking all of these vendors. But I've also met John, I think once or twice. John's going to sit there and ask you the question, what does that mean? John's not afraid to feel uncomfortable, right? To admit, I don't know what your product is. So if I'm talking to you, Dave, and you're saying something, you're just going to hold on. What do you mean by that? How is that going to be successful? How am I going to measure success? There's a lot of dealers that are afraid to be uncomfortable like that, so they'll nod their head like your head is right now and go, oh, that sounds good, and then they sign it because they think it's one thing and it's something else, and they just, again, go on this hope concept. I think the biggest disconnect is between vendors and dealers is nobody's willing to feel, I don't want to say stupid, it's too hard of a word, but uncomfortable.
Yeah.
To be able to say, I really don't know what you're talking about. Could you explain it to me?
Yes.
And I think that right there, the more that someone is willing to do that and say, can you explain it to me in what I call napkin math or napkin language? Like, I should be able to write what my product does on the back of a napkin in terms that someone goes, oh, that makes sense. Oh, well, what's the view through? I don't know. Let me explain. And then everyone and I think you win more business that way than trying to steamroll someone to go, hey, your competitors better buy it, everyone else is buying it. I think you'll be there long term if that dealer feels that you as a vendor, as a partner, that you're helping them understand, you're showing them success, and then on the other side is admit when something doesn't work. Because Dave, you're in marketing, we're all in marketing. Not every marketing works, but every dealer says to me, how come my vendors, every call is, we had a great month, it's great, spend more. There's never a bad month.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah,
let's be real.
But Glenn, yeah, and I agree with you. Amen. Preaching to the choir. And by the way, we're going to open up some lines on calls. We're going to give away. We have some chargers here from TrueCar. We have a ton of these. We're going to give away. So we're going to give away for the first 5 people who call in. We're going to give away some chargers. Also, we're going to give away. Patty Everson, I saw Patty, who was here in our office with Flick Fusion, and she said that I need to get a shirt like Cribs. I would like to put them on the spot. I think we can give away some shirts to a few callers as well. Yeah. So for the first 5 callers, we want to give away a TrueCar charger as well as a Video Warrior shirt. And that's kind of cool for calling in. Plus, you get to talk to us. But let me ask you this, Glenn, as we're waiting on callers to come in, or let me comment on that, I should say, and kind of bring this to Jason Grace. I agree. You know, vendors do that, right? I mean, it's never a bad month. But part of that is because when you're dealing with a dealer, or you're dealing, and I think this is something that dealers are listening need to maybe take heed to, because I never talk to a dealer that doesn't really want to fix the problem of how do I correctly place my advertising. What is wasted and what is not. I had a dealer that I worked with for 6 years. He probably spends about $20,000 a month or so with us, and we are responsible for about 30% of his sales. We do ROIs every month for 6 years, but we're only about 5% of their ad budget. He spends about $200,000 a month or so, roughly. Maybe we're responsible for 10%. And he says all the time, I'm not his agency, he has an agency. He says, hey, what do I need to cut out? And first of all, I'm not an expert on that. I mean, I have my opinion. But what I tell him, Jason, is I say, look, we're working, we're safe, we've been there 6 years. He's asking me, for goodness sakes, right? And I tell him, I say, look, man, how many cars? And I ask him this question, are you selling off of this? I don't know. How about this? I don't know. How about this? Well, I really don't know. And I'm like, well, there's your problem, man. I mean, it's like, the deal is, what is your ROI? And if somebody tells you, in some sort of in some sort of marketing program that I really don't have a solid ROI, I think you run as fast as you can. Can't catch me, I'm the gingerbread man. I mean, like, I'm out, man. I mean, it's to me, it's like, you can't tell me what I'm doing. And I think that this plagues the auto industry. So I think that vendors, though, sometimes we're calling on an industry, and dealerships spend money, and they look at it going, I have this budget. Let's just say, Jason, you're talking to a GM, right? It's not his store. The owner is on his yacht somewhere. He owns 5 stores, and he allocates a budget for $120,000, and he gives it to Dave Cribbs, the GM, Jason. You're calling Dave Cribbs, Dave Cribbs controls $120,000, but it's not coming from Dave's pocket. It's not coming from his pocket. You get it? Mm-hmm. But he reaps the rewards for it. Sounds like Vegas to me. You see what I'm saying? It's not coming from my pocket because I gave it to my son to gamble on. But my son's going to benefit the rewards if he wins. Sounds like gambling to me.
Yeah, and if he loses, he's got to place that call back to the guy on the yacht, by the way.
There you go. But the thing is that I don't have a clue what I should do.
Sure.
I don't really know what I should do, and I'm relying on you. So I'm in a dilemma. And it sounds like, Jason, that might be the dilemma that we need to try to figure out how to pierce. What do you say about that, Jason? Does that sound familiar to Jason Grace?
Sure it does. I mean, obviously the first thing that we want to do is make sure that we have the decision maker. So if Cribbs has the ability to do the deal, then we can move forward. And you want to put it in place so that he's educated. That's the whole deal. So you want to look and see where they're spending and what their benchmarks and where the bottlenecks are in their current process, As vendors, you see a lot of people that when it goes wrong, the vendor doesn't take accountability. And what they do instead is they say, you guys aren't closing the deals. Here's the problem. Well, if you do a good job when they sell a bunch of cars, then they do a bad job when they don't. There's a big issue with that because there's got to be accountability on both sides. Yes. Okay. But I never want to go to a dealer and say, we failed because. But a dealer will respect you so much more if you're absolutely honest and lay it all out there. But you look at guys like Keith Shetterly. What he does, he goes in and he sees what digital advertising is dead. You know what I mean? It's not real. It's not driving anything. And as a general manager, the vendor wants to make you shine. Because when you do great, we look good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Speaking of
so
that,
we want to educate you.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say Jess commented on Facebook, Dave and Jason, and she as a GSM at a Chevy store, she said, when my store wins, I personally thank our vendors because we are a team and they're a part of the success we have. That's a real partnership. It makes it a lot more fun. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
And how about Jess? Right now, Jess has proven she's a multitasker because she's a guest and she's commenting on Facebook.
I wonder who Jess is. Oh, Jess is on the show.
Yeah, Jess is on the show too. And we're going to go to Jess in just a moment, but we do have a caller on the line. I believe it's Steve Koch with Cooper Automotive. Steve, welcome to the show. Please share with our viewers your position there, and then if you have a question.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. So, digital marketing director, always listen to the show and enjoyed being a guest on the show. My position on this, and you guys can help me out, is we try so much to have attribution and talk about ROI, but I think that if we added up all of the different car deals that we can attribute this source or that source to, it's a lot more cars than we actually sold for the month. And I think a lot of our customers, receive more than one marketing message over the course of their journey. And I think we get a little bit lost in trying to attribute everything down to one point, and this is what sold me this car, because I don't think a lot of that exists. I think Jason just brought up a good point. Like, if you really inspect it and trim the dead wood out of there, you can get your budget in line and save a bunch of money. But when it comes to, I'm going to add this source, I'm going to advertise to this person, I'm going to sell this car, that's a great big challenge to ever really boil down to that single point attribution. So, I'm all for everybody's thoughts on that and how you can help us. We spend very little money, so we do a pretty good job of keeping track of things. But I think so many dealer groups, and especially in our market in Oklahoma City, it's so competitive. They spend so much money in so many places, they wouldn't have any clue what's actually moving the needle for them. And they change too many things too often to be able to track it anyway. So what are your thoughts about that? How do we break one car deal down to this is what sold it for us?
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And let's go to Jess on that question from Steve. And, Jess, when you're looking at different...
She's sorry, not sorry, by the way.
Jess, when you're looking at, different places to spread that budget, that monthly budget for advertising, do you have to attribute it to, each individual car deal, or do you say, hey, we want to be everywhere. We want to be in front of people on the radio, TV, here, there, and we just believe that is going to bring, a certain amount of traffic in, and we don't necessarily have to pin it to that one thing. Maybe share what your strategies there are.
That's good.
Jess?
Did we lose Jess?
Did we lose Jess? Jess? Okay, I'm gonna throw that over to Glenn. Glenn, in working with dealers on a daily basis, what do you see there? Do you see a focus on trying to break it down to an individual deal, or more of just a presence in the community? Share with our viewers.
It's a great question, and it's also a hard one to answer because with all the vendors, I mean, PCG has been trying to, over the last couple of years, really try to standardize some of the way that we're attributing events and into analytics and getting vendors to all sort of agree the same naming convention. Problem is that, you know, everybody wants to look at your marketing, and dealers try to do this in silos, right? So here's my traditional, and here's my direct mail, and here's this, and everybody, you know, every vendor comes in and lays claim to their piece to the puzzle. And as the gentleman said, you know, if I listen to all my vendors, I'm selling 5 times the cars I am because everybody's saying I'm the one that sold these X number of cars. It's really about getting everybody to the table and how you have to understand certain things are going to influence. So if you're doing traditional and you're doing radio or you're doing TV, how is there a direct correlation? But somehow we're comfortable with just awareness. But digital, we've been told, well, you can track everything. But again, is your analytics set up correctly to see the influence of third-party, you know, your Car Gurus and your AutoTraderCars.com versus last-click attribution? Well, if they're set up correctly, you'll see some assisted conversion. So again, it's a lot of this influence, but for dealers, it's the drug of the last-click attribution. We're going beyond that. We're trying to say, well, if only X number percentage of people who come to your website are going to give you information in a form of some sort of heavy conversion, you know, phone call, lead form, chat, or text, let's say it's 30%, which is high. Well, what the hell are the other 70% doing? So we got to start learning and understanding that behavior so that we can say, well, if I'm trying this overall, am I getting more opportunities at selling what I do? But it has to be a broad range. Very few things are, I did this and I can pencil it all to that. Yeah. Right? It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And then, by the way, thank you. And then Steve, by the way, Steve won a Charger and a T-shirt, and we're opening it up for the next few minutes. If you got a caller coming in and you have a question and you're at the dealership here, we'd like to take your call. And we're going to give you a TrueCar Charger as well as a Video Warrior.
So Glenn, thank you.
Jess came back on.
Yeah, too. Glenn, thank you. And I think you kind of answered the question I was throwing over at Jess. But I have another question for Jess. And Jess, you know, as the GSM, you know, we're talking obviously today about, you know, your interaction with vendors. And let me just throw this at you. When you're contacted from a vendor for the first time, what are maybe some of the do's and don'ts? What are some of the ways that maybe the approaches that you are probably more receptive to? And then what are some of the red flags? Like, you know, I'm just not going to talk to a person who maybe presents something in this way when they first approach me. Go ahead.
So I like to approach when somebody calls me and they're like, hey, how's business been? And they ask questions about kind of like what's currently been happening. And they kind of dig into a little bit more of where we want to go and what we want to accomplish, just to see if their product would match with what our end goal is.
Well, Jess, let me interrupt you one second. Let me interrupt you 1 second, because when you say that, that's intriguing to me. And I know a lot of vendors out there, the first thing they're thinking of is, well, how do I get your attention to actually have that dialogue with you right away? Like most dealers, let's face it, I mean, we got a million things going on. We get that call. How do you start breaking the ice with a dealer and start saying, you know, how's business? How are things going, without getting the blow off very quickly?
Well, yes, I get a lot of phone calls from vendors, but when they approach it in a way that they just want to be helpful to the overall cause and the goal, I'm a lot more receptive to it. You were asking about like when I get red flags. When somebody calls me and they don't really seem like it's just too salesy, the sales pitch, it's not genuine and authentic. Even if it's, you know, a company that I've heard, you know, other dealers have had success with, I won't work with that, you know, that actual individual. I'd request somebody else because my vendors and I call them all the time. I don't like the word vendor, honestly, because it really is more of a partner. And, you know, I'm investing in them and they're investing in me, and it's my job to make them look good. And you have to embrace that discomfort because I ask them all the time, like, hey, I'm not doing really, we're below, behind on sales. Let's dig into the metrics, the ROI, and let's just figure out like what I can do to get out of it.
Yeah,
and
Jess.
I really.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to just say this.
Go
Though,
ahead,
I agree with you, Jess. I think that, well, first of all, what I translate that into, and I want to ask Bill a question in a second, Bill, so just stand by, because I saw, it was a follow-up question earlier, and I saw somebody post on it that reminded me to bring this up to you, Bill. But Jess, what I hear you saying in reality is really an effective salesperson versus a sucky one. I mean, like, really, let's just say this. Let's say, because you're talking about you can't have a partnership unless you really work with somebody, and kind of realize that this is somebody I'm going to work with. Like if I eat ice cream that, that sucks, I'm not going to eat it again. It's not a partnership, but if like I like it, I'm going back and, hey, this is a company I'm going to go visit, and now we're a partnership. But I think that one of the things that we, in the auto industry, because they are not unlike the NFL or like anything that's on a performance base, it's like monthly or like seasonally. It's like, man, it's like, hey, last month was great, but now we got this month. It's like, it's so predicated on what I'm doing right now and what have you done for me lately, in the words of Paula Abdul, right?
Right.
So I guess my question
or
is,
Janet Jackson.
Or Janet Jackson, I should have Paula Abdul. Janet Jackson, there you go. What have you done for me? What have you done for me lately, right? Whoever sang that.
I think it was Lady Gaga.
Yes, right. One of them sang that song, but my point is that what have you done for me lately is the mentality, and you can't really have a partnership based on just a good sales pitch. But I think that what you're also referring to me, comes across as if anybody's cheesy here, man, they're not working here. You know what I mean? Like, look, if you can't relay our product, but I gotta get this in because I know we're running out of time, but I just simply gotta ask Bill too. Bill, I want you, Bill Playford, if you would, give me your best. I'm talking about our listeners, because there may be somebody that absolutely buys from you right now or gives you an appointment. Sell everybody listening, Bill. You got 45 seconds of uninterrupted solicitation. Sell us on Vendor Day. Go.
Janet Jackson. That's the answer.
There you go. That's pretty quick, man. But sell me on Vendor Day, man. Look, so that's what it was, Vendor Day. You got Vendor Day, and John Marazzi, I think, swatted that when Joe brought that up, because he said, man, I don't have time for a day. I never know what I'm going to do. Right. But sell us on Vendor Day, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just asking you to sell the people listening on the concept of a Vendor Day, if you believe in that. I know Joe does, but I mean, is that something you believe in as well?
Yeah, so I'll channel Joe. So the whole concept of Vendor Day is that you have that time allocated. And do we think it's an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day to vendors? Absolutely not. The idea is that when you have a situation when you need to field a call from a vendor and you don't have time, you can say, I take all my vendor phone calls on Wednesday, the second Wednesday of the month, let's say between 1 and 4 o'clock. Mm-hmm. You have time allocated in your schedule, because if we're busy, we should be using a calendar. It allows us to block off time throughout our month. And that Vendor Day might be one Tuesday, 1 month, and it might be Thursday, another month. But the idea is you block that time off, so that way you have adequate time to sit down and fully understand why that vendor is working or should work for you and why it's a good fit. And that kind of goes back to what Glenn says earlier. I don't want to take up too much time. She only gave me an inadequate amount of time to answer the question. But the big problem with that is that we don't know how we fit with a vendor. Mm-hmm. There's no benchmark. So I can tell you that, hey, we had a rockin' month, but how is that measured? Against who? If you have 2 clients, the 2 clients had a rockin' month, where does that leave you? You're the one that had the bad month?
Well, let me give you some more time.
These are all questions that we need to have time to answer, and that's why we need to have that time blocked off. And we can answer those questions and have a much better fit.
Let me give you some more time on it, because I want to kind of just there, kind of just pivot for a second and kind of counter that. So let's say, and again, I know it's not sterile, man. It's not perfect, and I get it. So I know that might be your answer. But in a less perfect world, in a less perfect answer, I'm a dealer that plans Wednesdays. But listen, let's just say I did that, right? Because I think I'm not unlike a lot of general managers, right? I'm busy. I'm running, a lot of employees. I'm moving. I'm in charge of sales. I'm a driver, what have you. And you're trying to call me, and I got Wednesdays set aside. But yet this particular Wednesday, and I don't know it yet, but Tuesday, morning, I'm beginning to have a bad week. Our guys aren't really doing what they should do. I need a shot in the arm. Things are changing because my priorities quickly shifting towards me motivating my sales team. I'm going to be spending time in the sales room, telling my marketing team, I'm canceling all my appointments on, hey guys, I'm sorry, we're going to have to move our appointments from marketing. Hey, listen, really, I knew I had an accounting meeting, but I got to move that aside. My shift is focusing towards the drive of the business because that's what I am, right? I'm the GM, and that's a lot of the GMs that you're talking to. So now that happens.
Amen.
And all my appointments on Wednesday aren't there. What now? That's what I'm trying to say.
I think
what now? But But here's the deal.
You're presenting like
Bill,
the
one last thing.
absolute
Bill,
worst case
one last
scenario.
thing. Bill. One.
You're presenting the worst case scenario.
I'm actually talking about every other week. Here. So I'm saying, or at least once a month it happens. But here's the deal. Let me throw this caveat in. But on the same token, I can't really afford to put off planning the advertising for next month too far because it's got to happen. I just need to move it from Wednesday. I mean, shoot, man, I'll blow off a marketing meeting that I've got planned for 2 days or 3 days or 2 weeks because something comes up like that. And there's deadlines that have to be met. And guess what I do? My marketing team, I go, hey guys, I'm sorry I can't meet. We have to do it tomorrow. But wait a second, Dave, you want the deadline the day after tomorrow. I go, yeah, but you know what? You got to make it happen. And guess what? Those guys' jobs just got harder in my marketing team. My job was already harder because I'm the freaking guy at top and having to run everything anyway. So what I'm saying is that what do you do there? I guess it's not, I don't know if it's really an isolated case. I think it might be something that happens regularly. I'm just throwing that out.
I called Janet Jackson. And she said that you can always pick up the phone and call the vendor. If you have to, reschedule a time. I've had to push my team huddle off twice this month, so I get where you're coming from there.
Right.
But nothing precludes us from calling those vendors. We can always have a list, and we can always take their number. I hope we would when we call and we say, hey, Wednesdays are my day to meet with my vendors. You can always take their name and phone number and email address, and you can call them or send a Raven or whatever you want to do anytime you want to. I'm sure if they're in sales, they'd love to take your call. So the whole idea is that you're planning your life so that when you have these situations where you have to have an all hands on deck or you have to do it, then you can plan for that too. You know how to move those times around. It shouldn't be a surprise to you that you're going to be busy that Wednesday because leading up to that, you've had a bad month or whatever happened, a storm came through, you had to shovel out the dealership. You can plan for that. The whole idea is to be proactive and make sure, again, there's enough time because I want to go back to what Glenn said. The whole premise of this show is the bad fit that people have with their vendors is a bad relationship, and sometimes it gets off on a wrong foot. I think a lot of time that happens is because they never took the time to do due diligence. They never took the time to have the conversation. They never took the time to make sure it was a good fit, not only technologically or what have you, but actually just socially it's a good fit. And I think that's where a lot of this friction comes from.
Bill,
that's why having a time set aside.
Hey, Bill, I love the fact that I like that you used Janet Jackson twice, though, to pivot. That's pretty good, man. I got to give it to you. You're like, Janet, listen, you bought some time to think, and sometimes as vendors, we got to buy some time to think, and you did it. Good job.
Appreciate that, Bill. And we're going to go to closing comments in the interest of time. We're running a little bit over. I do want to point out real quick that I thought Jess really offered some wisdom earlier, Dave. I don't know if the audience caught this or not, but when she talked about, if she does get a vendor that has a bad approach, she may not discount that vendor's company. She may just not want to deal with that one person. I think that's very wise because sometimes you will have someone that maybe doesn't approach you in the most the best way, but it doesn't mean that you should close your eyes to possibly that opportunity. So we'll go for closing comments. We'll go to Glenn.
The other have a lot of respect for all of them and their viewpoints. And I think ultimately what we've all been talking about, from Bill talking about getting your day organized and owning the day versus the day owning you, because we are in a busy industry. But I think ultimately it's being, from the dealer's perspective, it's I have to be educated on what I'm buying. And there's information out there from online training or vendors or consultants to pick their brain. And if you can't, say, listen, I'm going to invest to have Bill on the phone with me for the next 6 months to teach me what I should do, because that's going to help me long term. And then on the flip side from the vendors is being patient with some of the dealers, and you're going to win more business if they really understand what you do versus, hey, I'm going to blow past them and I'm going to get the deal, but then 6 months later I get blown out because they don't know what I'm doing. So that's my last. 2 cents.
Good.
Great. And how do dealers reach you, Glenn, if they want to reach out for anything?
They can go to PCG Companies, www.PCG Companies. They can find me on social media everywhere and just DM me right away, or just Glenn, Glenn, at PCGcompanies.com, and I'll be more than happy to jump on calls and run by without, like I said, I don't bill for my time, so just I'll answer any questions.
Thank you,
One
Glenn.
of the good guys. One of the good guys.
Yes.
Thank you, Glenn.
Let's go to Jess Katz for closing comments.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it. I love the feedback that everybody brought to the table today. I want to say thanks to all my partners, my partnerships that I have out there. I know a lot of them are actually watching and they're on the call today. So thanks for everything that they do. And I thought this was a really good topic today. So thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank
Jess.
you, Jess.
It's our pleasure.
Bill Playford, your boss stuck in there, man. He said there are more vendors than ever before. You can't allocate time for every call. Asking for an impromptu demo, that is the benefit of a vendor visit protocol. Joe Webb weighed in, man, came to the defense of his concept there. And you know what, great guy, and Bill, you're a great guy as well. Why don't you give us the closing comments?
Joe Webb in his own words. So benchmarking and KPIs are your best friends. You know, one of the things that you need to do as a dealership is you need to be committed to measurement. And if you're good at measuring yourself, when you go into a new vendor partnership or as you are evaluating those relationships, watch the numbers. Like, it all starts with measurement. I just like to segue really quick. We're going to be talking about attribution here at NADA for anybody who will be attending the NADA conference here in a little bit. I'll be with Experian. If you want some more information, learning about attribution and just how to measure and what metrics you can use and Google Analytics and all that cool stuff, go to autoilluminati.xyz to get registered for that. But I think there's a lot more to dig into. We just had a short period of time, and I really appreciate you guys having me on board here. It's a great conversation. But we just, as the whole dealer community, we need to be committed to coming up with solutions together. And we need to be more committed to a more of a spirit of openness. Mm-hmm. And I think when we can build some of those standards like Glenn had talked about, I think we'll be in a much better position moving forward.
Thank you so much, Bill. And we'll go to Jason Grace for final comment.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. I do appreciate it. This has been really interesting to touch on what Bill said about measurement. Peter Drucker said, what gets measured gets managed, right? So everything that we do, from our ads to our sales, our efforts need to be measured. Otherwise, we're not really managing them. You know, and what we should be doing is focusing on the overall marketing strategy. Now, ads are easily trackable because of the response that we get, but a marketing channel, like an integrated marketing channel, covers branding, billboards, radio, television. There's no way to really track that outside of your community reputation and, front of mindness. You know what I mean? When people think of you constantly, then that's a good thing, but you might not get a response until they get the mailer or until they see the pre-roll. So, I mean, make sure that you're measuring everything that you're doing and seeing, like, if you ramp up on television, do you see an increase in foot traffic? You know, so, I mean, you've got to look at your entire market and do a penetration map, you know, see where your biggest buyers are coming from, figure out why, but measure everything and reverse engineer your objective. So you got to be dynamic and reverse engineer your objective and what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank
you guys
Jason.
very much. Hey, I want to mention real quick, Arnold Terrarina it has an NADA party list. Oh, shoot, I just dropped that there. This is sponsored by Digital Dealer, Rockstar, Perk, and Carter West PR. It's at NADA, and it's Sunday, March 25th, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. And in Facebook comments and on Twitter with the hashtag AutoDealerLive, you can find out more info. We want to invite our listeners. If you're going to be at NADA, make sure you check that out. If the word NADA and party and Auto Dealer Live are all together, Arnold is right there. Right? So, hey, listen, check it out. Again, Digital Dealer, Rockstar, Auto Conference, Perk, and Carter West PR. And it's Sunday night, March 25th at NADA, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. You don't want to miss that party. Karaoke. You can sing. You can sing. Listen, if you can't sing, listen, this is the time where you can enter. You're talking about Janet Jackson?
Yeah, you can do your Janet Jackson.
You could channel your inner Janet Jackson. If you sing like John Jackson, who's John? John's a guy who can't sing, right? John Jackson, you can come and channel it and sing.
Yeah,
right
make it
there,
happen.
Man. Right
so
there.
so we want to
I'm sorry, Kribby, but also our sponsor Flick Fusion will be at NEDA. Their booth number will be 2032C.
32C.
2032C.
2832C. Flick
Say it
Fusion.
again, Luke, 'cause
Flick
you just-
Fusion.
Right now, if you put a gun in my head, I couldn't tell you the
2832C.
number because you.
32, the letter C.
2032C.
Flick Fusion.
20 left, 28 right, 38 left. Okay.
You got it.
Flick Fusion, yes. We want to thank our guests, Glenn, Jess, Bill, Jason. Thanks so much for being on today, and we appreciated you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
All right, guys. Yeah, I hope to see you all at NADA next week.
All right, buddy.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Let's read some
Thank you so much.
comments. Let's read some comments here. So Jess said, when my store wins, I personally thank our vendors. I already read that, didn't I?
Yep.
Chad Morgan, great vendors are transparent. You can trust them. They tell you the good and the bad. I'm going to add the ugly.
The
How
ugly.
about that? There's some little
Yep.
Clint Eastwood in there, right?
Let's
This
Dave.
earns trust.
Let's give away a couple shirts to a couple of the people that have commented too.
Let's do it. Let's
do
give away
it.
some shirts. Shad Morgan, you get a shirt. Lou, we got some shirts, right?
Yes, we do. We got plenty of shirts.
And let me tell you something about this shirt. Not only is it cool as far as the colors, but it is silky smooth cut. Oh my god!
Yeah, and
I
it's
could
soft
cuddle up.
on the.
It's
on
like a
the-
night shirt.
You made it all.
It's soft on the nipply area of if you're a guy, you know, it's kind of right. It holds, it holds them in a little bit. You
It
know?
helps you cut ice. That's all I can say.
Damien Bordeaux, Subi Fernando Ghosh. Hey guys, happy to share him temporarily, but let's not all follow and engage with Bill Playford. I need to continue to have quality time to set my brain on fire. You know, I would love to read Amy's Edmonds Hughes comment, but I don't really know what that says. Auto Illuminati? Is that what she's saying?
Yes.
All right. Let's see, Kevin Campbell. When I was in retail management, I was never naive enough to think I had it all figured out. Even if I didn't do business, I often learned something from the call/demo. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
You want to read something, Dave?
Sure. Subi Ghosh asked them to send me international information. Yeah, I'm trying to read it. I
okay,
need
buddy?
glasses.
Dude, you got some,
I
you got some
swear.
glasses, bro. You want me?
Get this old
He
man a
said,
look up.
he said the word Immernash. It's information.
Get this
He
man-
said, ask them to
Get
send
him
me
a
some.
magnifying glass.
He said, ask me to send me some information.
Information.
Information because I review on Wednesdays. All right, let's read one more. Got anybody? Let's see here. All right, let's see. Steve said, we'll read Eddie Stefan, Arnold Tiarina. Hey, okay, let's read another one by Amy. They taught me to do this, and it was a little safer. Vendor Day she's advocating Vendor Day. It helped me manage my time, be efficient, schedule accordingly instead of chasing time. So let me just tell you, man. I mean, to be honest, if you're watching this, I know we're over on our time, but we'll kind of wrap it up with this. I mean, I love the concept of Vendor Day.
Yeah,
Let me just
I
tell
do
you, I'm a
too,
vendor,
yeah.
gentlemen and ladies. Let me tell you, if you say, hey, there's a day, but it's just the deal is my 20 some odd years of look. It's
We need dealers to pick a separate day
I
though,
walked
so we can call them
into a
every day.
dealership. I walked into a dealership, man, with a set appointment driven, down there, for 3 hours, and walked in and be like, and had the GM look out of his door while he's eating a box of donuts, and playing solitaire on his computer,
Tell him I'm
not
not here.
doing a ding thing, man. Look out the door, and I'm like, I know what you look like, and he's looking over and he sees me and he goes, picks up the phone and he goes, hey, tell him I'm busy. And it's like, I just drove down there for nothing. So I get it. The Vendor Day would be wonderful, right? If it is something that is serious. Look, I think you got to be serious whether it's Vendor Day or 2-day. You understand?
Sure.
I had one of my sales guys drive not even very far, so it wasn't really out of the way. One of my sales guys drove to meet a GM of a several store group. And I'm not kidding you. This is a GM who I'm very familiar with. I know him very well. I've known him for 15 years. And my top sales guy who makes a lot of money, who went in to see this guy, had a great, product to show him. Went in, sat down in the showroom, said I'm here, or sat down in the waiting room, knows what the guy looks like. And he said for 30 minutes, okay, their appointment was at 10 o'clock. for 30 minutes after. So 10:30, this guy walked around. He saw him. He didn't know he knew what he looked like. He saw him and walked around eating a couple of donuts as he went around and chit-chatted with people for 30 minutes and then said, okay, I'm ready to see you. So, I mean, Vendor Day sounds really great in theory. Mike Phillips said dealers want to find one thing, vendors want to be named as that one thing. So they are both chasing one item. Customers will tell you it isn't one thing. Very well said.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Bang, bang.
All right, brother.
What y'all think?
You gotta hang it. You gotta hang it. You gotta-
Huh?
Yeah, leaving me hanging.
There you go.
I'm about to pee my pants.
Yeah, me too.
I gotta pee.
Man, I gotta
Me
go.
too. We got to go.
Gotta go.
We'll see you next week. Next week on Auto
I'm
Dealer
running on
Live.
like the need to pee right now.
Let's go.